I wanted to share my first impressions on the upcoming character banners. That's Acheron and Luocha for the first half, and Aventurine and Jingliu on the second half. So first, let's talk about the woman of the hour, Acheron, right? So Acheron, she's a very cool-looking unit, yeah. I saw her ult animation. It was very cool, to for lack of a better word. And her skill is actually pretty good looking as well, like the Octobolt slash. I guess that was the name. Yeah, I also really like the aesthetics of it. So for that alone, I think most people would pull. But why don't we try talking a bit more about Acheron's kit based on what we've seen on the in the live stream, right? So first off, we see that she crits in this showcase of her ult. That means she'll be competing with Jingyuan as the premier lightning DPS. So she doesn't use energy. Instead, she has like 9 charges of this uh thing that looks like a flower. And once you get 9 charges, then she can unleash her burst, right? No energy, however, means that she won't synergize with Tingyun and Ho Ho, which is like one of the two dominant supports right now, simply because they help accelerate your ultimate, which overall is an increase in your damage per rotation, right? Right now, I'm on the fence whether this will be a good a good gimmick, or if it will gimp her damage in the long run. But for now, I'll hold on my thoughts on that. Right. So depending on her numbers, on her multipliers, right? Especially on her skill. If she has good skill multipliers, then I think we can justify trying not to use her ultimate as much, simply because she's skill centric, right? All her multiplier, most of her damage is in her skill, so we don't really have to care that much about her ultimate. So if we get her ultimate, that's free damage, but most of her damage is in her skill, so it's fine either way. If she is skill centric DPS, that means she is also a front loaded DPS, right? Which already makes her better, arguably, than Jingyuan. Of course, we'll have to see the numbers. Yeah. Uh, that would be, I think, a good news for people who skip Jingyuan for Acheron. That's the best scenario, I think, for Acheron. So the much more unfortunate scenario, I think, is if her skill multipliers are mid. Like they're not bad, but they're not game changing either. And majority of her damage is in her burst. I mean, in her ultimate, right? If that's the case, then she becomes something like Argenti. So she becomes a female Argenti. Uh, that means she is also backloaded, like Jing Yuan, right? Maybe not as backloaded as Jing Yuan, because at least you can control how many charges you can, like how fast you can charge Acheron's ultimate. But she's still backloaded nonetheless, which means uh, calling her a direct upgrade would be a bit harder, unless her numbers make up for it a lot. And I think it also depends on how good you play Acheron or Jingyuan. But assuming she is like ult centric, that means we'll need to find ways to supercharge her ult. Uh, so since no energy there is no energy mechanic here involved, we'll need to look at her, like at the nuance of her kit, which according to the live stream says she gets a charge every debuff. So that's how do you say it? In one action, if you make a debuff, or like the enemy deals a self inflict make makes a self-inflicted debuff, then Acheron gains one charge, right? That means if you like do two debuffs like Silver Wolves per action, like 2 to 3, that doesn't mean you get two charges, right? It's just one charge because you did one action and you did a debuff. So that's her like workaround to the energy situation. That means if you get like Acheron and two other debuffers, it's possible to do a 3 turn ult. If that's the case, maybe she'll be better than Jingyuan, but the issue is that Jingyuan has access to harmony supports, right? But Acheron is restricted to debuffers, and not a lot of harmony units have debuffs within their kit. Yeah, the only harmony units that have debuffs are Ruan and Asta. Unless you use those two in your team, I don't think you'll be able to like supercharge your Acheron. I'm going to assume our sustain can't deal debuffs. Like the only way this works if her numbers are so like overtuned that it's easy to justify not using harmony units. But so far that's my outlook on Acheron. Best case scenario, like her ult is an afterthought and most of her damage is in her skill. If that's the case, that she's a front-loaded DPS and she'll be a very good pull, right? She'll be an upgrade over Jingyuan most of the time. But if she's backloaded, if her numbers are concentrated on her ult, I'm going to need a lot of convincing that she'll be a better pick over Jingyuan. Uh, that's all. Ah, wait. I think the thing that convinced me that good, she'll be a good pull at the very least, right? Uh, I think her technique, yeah. Her technique allows her to like instantly kill mobs in the overworld and simulated universe. Yeah, that's a very strong consideration for me because this speeds up, running around the overworld killing enemies or when you're farming in simulated universe, right? That's yeah, that's a high value niche for me. That's also the reason why I pulled Ruan Mei. So like I'm kind of sad that that niche of Ruan Mei of like being the premier SU support, like it's kind. I mean, she still works, but there's no point of supporting when like everything dies before you even engage, right? So, mm, uh, that alone makes me strongly consider pulling for her, right? Personally, uh, but if you're not someone who runs around the overworld or you don't farm simulated universe outside of the weekly SU runs, then I don't think she'll be well, until we know the numbers, right? I don't think she'll be a very good pull as of right now. And come to think of it, I think the live stream also said something about optimizing SU runs. It's also possible that depending on how they optimize the SU run, right? Insta killing mobs might become useless. But we'll see how it goes. The next 2.1 unit would be Aventurine. I'm sorry, Aventurine. So he's a sustain unit. So a shielder just like Jeopard. Uh I think another limited sustain means he'll be low value for people who already have Wushuan, Ho Ho, Luocha, or like all three of them. Uh I do think he's worth considering for people who want to play follow-up teams because he also has a follow-up mechanic. And especially for ratio teams, because ratio's talent requires three debuffs in order to get 100% follow-up. And Aventurine has a debuff on his ultimate. It's single target, right? But it's fine because ratio is single target. So that helps as well. And I think potentially it also helps Topaz because now you don't have to uh like buy for her signature light cone and her Eidolon 1 to make her work with ratio. in order to like get the 100% follow up attack. Uh, but I don't know. So far, that's my initial thoughts. Like, since he has a debuff, it helps with uh ratio topaz teams, especially those who don't have E1 S1. But we'll see how it goes when he'll become live. I think Aventurine's an obvious skip, and I think Hoyoverse also knows this because he doesn't really have the best 4 stars on his banner. So now we go to the rerun banners. So for the first half, we have Luocha, and for the second half, we have Jingliu. So Luocha, I think is also a skip. The reason being he doesn't have something like that spice, that little spice in his kit. Like Fushuan, she has some crit rate support. And then we have Ho Ho. So those two have offensive niches. In general, I don't think he's better than Fushuan or Ho Ho, right? Aventurine might be better than him simply because Aventurine has a seeming niche in follow-up attack teams. If you need a limited sustain unit, I suggest either pulling for Aventurine or waiting for 2.2 because it's possible that Fushuan will rerun in 2.2. So I think it's safer to wait a couple weeks in order to get Fushuan or Aventurine, right? If you're into his shield mechanic or if you want to play follow-up attack. I'm not saying that he's bad, right? He has a good niche in like enemy buff stripping. Oh, he also is a very SP positive unit. That means if you're having SP issues, even with the Sparkle, you can use him in the team, and now you won't be having any SP issues at all, right? You'll be overflowing with SP. It's just that sometimes you don't need that niche when everything just dies, right? That's all that I can say about Luocha. Of course, if you're pulling him for other reasons besides meta, then feel free to pull for him, right? And finally, we have Jingliu for second half of 2.1 banners. Uh, this one, I think she's still great value, both for newcomers, especially for newcomers, right? And for people who don't have good ice coverage. I mean, the only ice coverage we have, I guess, is Jingliu. I mean, Yanqing works, but Yanqing, right? Anyways, so if you want ice coverage, then yeah, I think Jingliu would be a great pick for you. A good value banner, right? So yeah, that's all for my first impressions. I can't wait to revisit this like 6 weeks later once all of my assumptions are either verified or like just just bad takes, right? Anyways, see you guys next time, and thanks for watching, by the way.